Hello, pipe smokers. Yeah, this is the Paul Gilson YouTube channel, and I'm Paul Gilson, aka Paul the Pipe Guy. And I wanted to do a little video on what I remember about 9/11 of 2021. Now, you have to remember, those of you that are watching, in different parts of the United States or across the pond, or my buddy Youssef in South Africa, my other friend Jay in Canada, you have to keep in mind that I'm just a little bit over 300 miles from where that happened. And it all began, it was a beautiful Tuesday morning. It was Tuesday, September 11th, 2021. And I was a very young finance manager at a car dealership. I was 36 years old. And I got up that morning, and I usually arrived at work between 8 and 8:30. Don't remember exactly what time I got there, but it was early, and my wife had made me breakfast, 2 sausage McMuffins with eggs, that type of deal. And I remember the day was just absolutely gorgeous. That day was 75 degrees. There, which for, a late summer day is pretty good. And there was not a cloud in the sky. It was just one of the most perfect, beautiful days you could ever imagine. The sky was just so blue. And I went to work, and I'm eating my breakfast sandwiches. And let's start something on fire. We have a BBB that I just got in, which stands for Britain's Best Briar. And that's just a gorgeous pipe. It's bowl number 607. Stunning pipe. And I enjoyed yesterday's smoke so much. As far as what I smoked, and that is Seattle Club Plum Pudding Bourbon Barrel Aged. It's just about 3.5 years old. So let's start that on fire, and we'll have a smoke together, and I'll tell you what I remember. Now, I don't study every single day the chronological events that unfolded that day. And this is not a documentary on exactly what happened. I want to share with you what happened in my heart, in my head, in my field of view, what I witnessed from other people. And my experience being so close to this horrible terrorist event. Oh, this is good. So I arrive at work, eating my breakfast sandwiches, doing some paperwork. And I was a very young finance manager, like I said, 36 years old, at a car dealership, working 1 million hours a week, raising a whole bunch of kids, me and my wife. Typical American family, except we had a lot of kids. think at that time we had eight or nine. We had 10 altogether. So I'm sitting there eating my breakfast sandwiches, and all of a sudden I hear a page for Paul Gilson pickup line, whatever it was. And it was my wife, and she said, "Are you watching CNN?" Because at that time, CNN was like the go-to news station if you wanted to know what was happening. And I said, "No, why? What's going on?" She said, "A plane just hit one of the Twin Towers." Now, just a couple months before that, her and I and the kids went down there. We saw the Twin Towers. We walked around Manhattan. So I said, "Well, let me go watch the news." And so I go into the customer waiting area, and everyone's just sitting there in silence watching. And they keep showing the replay of this jet airliner. I don't know if it was American Airlines or what. Fly at full speed, crash midsection into one of the Twin Towers. And I was like, whoa. And they had this live, and there's a, helicopter flying around, and they were talking about, if they thought it was an accident or if it was on purpose or whatever. And then, in disgust and amazement and disbelief, as there's probably 30 people packed into this room, the customer waiting area watching the TV. You hear another jet airliner, and you see it crash right into the second tower. At that point in time, we were like, there's no way this is a coincidence. We're being attacked. This is a terrorist attack. Now, my finance manager, he was staying at one of the hotels that was leveled, that was right next to the Twin Towers. He, for some reason, decided to come back 2 days early. Came back on a Sunday. Who knows what could have happened to him? So then everybody's eyes are glued. The owner's in there. The owner of the car dealership is in there. He really doesn't care if anybody's doing their job. Nobody's coming in to buy a car. After that happened, they closed down all the airports. They grounded all the planes. And we live very close to a pretty large airport, Rochester International Airport. And it was strange not to see streaks in the sky from the jets taking off, maybe 10 miles away. And it was an eerie feeling to see in front of the dealership, there was a 4-lane main highway. There was not one car going up and down the road. Nothing. Nothing in the air, Nothing on the road. Nothing. So I'd called my wife back. I was like, man, I can't believe that. You know, second tower just got hit. And we were like in dismay. Then not terribly too long after that, the Pentagon got hit. Another hijacked plane went crashing right into the Pentagon, killing even more people. You know, along with all the passengers and everything on the airline, that jet. And then we had rumor that one got shot down, I believe, over Pennsylvania, or well, they said that the crew, not the crew, the passengers had somehow gotten phone connections with their family, and they were like, look, two planes hit the Twin Towers, one hit the Pentagon, and your airplane's heading to Washington, D.C. Well, they said, and I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, because I don't know. They said that the passengers on that plane refused to let these terrorists potentially crash into the White House. So supposedly they stormed the cabin, and I guess there was audio of that. But I've also heard other things, not to start rumors or conspiracies, but my boss, his son, was in the Air Force, and he said that, and he was a high-ranking, he was a mechanic, jet mechanic. He said they scrambled planes up there and they shot that last jetliner down. Whether that's true or not, you and I won't know. I don't know. I'd like to think that the passengers on that plane took over, killed the terrorists, and the plane just nosedived. They didn't find any wreckage or anything, just a big hole. So it was a very eerie feeling to live like next to a major airport hub. You see no airplanes in the sky, no white streaks. You're right in front of one of the main highways in Rochester. There's not one car going down. Everybody was at home glued to their television sets. I'm going to graduate to a cigarette. We're going to take a little break. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. So I've got a Busch beer, so cheers. Cheers to all those who lost their lives, all the families that were affected in this horrible terrorist attack. There were a lot of heroes that day. Like I said, you know, we're graduating to a cigarette. I went home to my family and I was just glad to be home. They closed the dealership a couple hours early. We all just went home to our families. And so the kids and myself and my wife, we were glued to the TV set, and there was really no answers of really what happened other than it appeared to be a terrorist attack. And the younger Bush was president then. he got on and spoke to the nation and said that he would hunt down, we were going to hunt down and find those responsible for this horrible act and kill them. And eventually we did. Obama got Osama bin Laden. So as things unfolded, you know, I ended up joining the fire department. I actually called to join the National Guard, and I was 1 year too old. I was going to give up my finance career, everything. Leave the corporate world. I dealt with bankers, auto loans, all of that stuff. And I was going to join the National Guard Reserves. But, well, I would have stayed there, you know, and worked, but I would have had to go to boot camp for 13 weeks or whatever. You get it. But I was 1 year too old. So what did I do? I joined my local fire department. So, and we had a lot of people join the local fire department after 9/11 happened. A lot of dedicated people that wanted to serve their communities. We learned that day that there were 343 first responders that were killed in action in a line of duty death. That included the people on the piers, forget what you call them. They police the piers. That included New York City firefighters. That included police officers, paramedics, ambulance personnel, anything that has to do with it. We lost 343 of them. And on the average year, we lose about 70. So that's over 4 times as many. And I learned in the fire department what it was like to be running into a burning building when everyone's running out. And that was very exciting for me. It was exciting because I was serving my community. And I've been in buildings that are on fire. And it's not a romantic experience. Your training takes over and you're really not afraid, because you're trained so well. These agencies, even the volunteer agencies, are trained so well. These guys were professionals. They trained every day, all day. They were either eating, sleeping, or training, or going on a call. That was their careers. And those men and women who were running upstairs the Twin Towers before they collapsed didn't know if they were going to make it out or not. Now, when the chief says, when the big boss says, it's time to get out of the structure that's on fire, they set off every siren that they can on every fire truck. These guys were 70 floors above in a concrete structure. They never heard it. They never heard it. I've been in structure fires where it's like all of a sudden you hear the siren go off, you get the fuck out, and then you watch the building collapse, and then you realize why. So for me, it was important to serve my country. I only did it for about 5 years. Then being a business owner and so forth, and raising so many kids, and then having, you know, this career where I was working a lot of hours, I served 5 years, and that was it. And then it was time for me to focus on other things. There's many stories of many, many heroes that day. You can watch them all on TV, where people risk their lives to get other people out. I remember watching people actually jump out of an 800-foot window, 800 feet high, and fall to the ground, fall to the street on TV. They had it on the internet too, and then they cut all that out. And I don't know if necessarily those people jumped out. Maybe they did. I mean, if it gets hot enough and you start burning and your flesh is burning, your body's going to tell itself that, okay, I might only have 5 seconds to live, but I'm going to take the window and the fall. I know it's going to kill me, but I'm going to burn up a horrible death in here. But also, there was huge drafts that were going up, so I believe a lot of those people were actually blown out the windows, and, you know, were trying to get air and then just sucked out. I remember watching people waving white pieces of cloth to try to get saved, and there was no way to save them because there was a fire below them, a fire on top of them, and a fire behind them. You couldn't get a helicopter there to save them. There was no way. So this day, I'm dedicating this video to that, all those poor souls that lost their lives, and the many, many families that were affected. You know, when you have a breadwinner that's there and they die, and that's your dad or that's your spouse, that shocks the whole family, and in the manner that they died, it was horrible. So let's never forget. I'm Paul the Pipe Guy. On 9/11 of 2024, 23 years after. And that's what I remember. I also remember the following week when things started opening back up in New York City. We had some bankers that we dealt with down there that would, you know, finance some of the car loans. They worked for, you know, the banks. And I remember talking to one guy, and he says, I lost all my friends. And he was crying. And he's like, we're just wondering when we're going to get hit again. Nobody wants to come to work. You know, fear was struck into those people. It's a sad thing. I hope it doesn't happen again. Paul the Pipe Guy, over and out. And never forget.